So our next speaker is going to be Ginger Chen, who I love dearly and has hair goals for days, but is also a device architect at AT&T and is going to be talking about storytelling as the next big skill. Stage is yours.
Unexpected lessons from the Lesbians Who Tech stage. A few years ago, I was asked by Lesbians Who Tech to come here and talk about fear, how to leverage using fear, and that turned into a couple of years of presentations on the same subject. I did not do it as a data talk. I could have, but I did it as a personal story. And it was raw, it was emotional, and it totally worked. And it convinced me that storytelling is a very powerful tool in our world. Now, we think of stories as being not a big deal, but others think otherwise. It's been said that storytelling will be the biggest business skill in the next 5 years. The author who wrote that is a management consultant. She wrote it 3 years ago, and it was just updated, and she still believes the exact same thing. I believe it too, because we've all seen the power of a good TED Talk. The research on why storytelling matters and how it can be used in corporations is being published. There are places you can learn storytelling, there are places you can do storytelling, but what is it about storytelling that really makes it function? Why do we need it now, today, more than ever? I think it's because, more than ever in the past, what we do is information-centric. We are creators and exchangers of information. In a sense, we're like the brain cells in a brain. And if you think of the brain analogy, we know that brains become dysfunctional if we lose just a modest number of connections. Imagine what we could unleash if we create more connections of different kinds. Storytelling is that tool to create more connections between us, the brain cells within an organization or within society at large. Now, why does storytelling actually function? What makes it go? Well, storytelling hasn't changed. It's always been about setup, conflict, resolution. Same kind of structure, no matter what kind of story you're talking about. Sometimes 4, sometimes 5 steps, but that basic setup. Now the medium has changed. We've gone from the oral tradition to books, to video, and to digital delivery, but the essence of story has been the same for eons. And I think that's just because it's the way we're made. Storytelling also works because it operates at an emotional level. It is attractive when you can find this magical balance between personally vulnerable and confident with experience and perspective. And there's that line is really important. You don't want to try to tell a story and fold it into a presentation if you are still raw in the process of coming through it. You need to have some time, some perspective, and some wisdom to share, and to be able to do it with confidence and authenticity. If you're still messed up, it's not going to come across as being particularly strong. And being on the emotional level, storytelling avoids this big elephant of rational debate. We do need to look at facts. We need to analyze them and debate them so we can refine them. But there are people who will argue just for the sake of arguing. There are people who will argue because they're terribly afraid of something behind them that people will see. And we see this happening in the political realm. There are some places you just can't make progress with the intellectual plane. But on the emotional plane, a very underused avenue of communication. And there's the physical experience, there's the spiritual experience. Those are a little harder to get in contact with. But storytelling gives you a way to reach someone at an emotional level. And you may as well spend a little investment, spend a little time investing in that channel, because you may get through to someone who is simply not ready to hear your facts or the way you see the facts. And suppose you do get in contact with someone's fears or someone's reluctance. Storytelling gives you a way, without bludgeoning them with directives, without hammering them with shame over their fear or their inability to understand your facts, it gives you a way with any kind of story that's even remotely close to what someone may be struggling with, and to lead them out of that place. As a management and leadership skill, this is very powerful, and you'll see more and more executives using stories as part of their key strategic presentations. And finally, storytelling works because we remember the feelings. And one of my first lessons after telling this piece on fear for a couple of years is that people would come up to me afterwards and I would ask them, what do you remember of what I said? And the details already gone. You know, it had been 10 minutes, the details are already vanishing. People do remember the gist of the presentation, which is great, but even that fades after time. What lasts for years are feelings. And you know, I don't care what the feelings are. It doesn't matter if I've triggered sadness in someone or they're feeling empathy for part of my story. It has created a connection that wasn't there before. There is trust at the foundation of that. There's empathy, one way or the other or both. And that is a vehicle that we can use in the future, especially to communicate additional strategic messages, whether you're trying to turn a big company or simply redirect your team for 30 days. The faster you can get to alignment, if you're not getting there as quickly as you would like with the intellectual arguments or the facts or the business case alone, you can move them a little more quickly with stories. Now, one of the things about stories is, where am I going with this? There we go. I just wanted to say, stories are very powerful things. And you can build them with words, you can build them with pictures, but you may want to consider, if you are about to tell a story in the context of a presentation, consider going without the safety net of slides once in a while. That means no pictures and no words. And that's a very scary suggestion. But the reason I say that is because I told that piece on fear 2 different ways. One, with me, with a microphone, an empty stage, and 12 minutes. The other was with an animation playing behind me and carefully scripted words that perfectly matched the animation. In both cases, the piece worked. People came away with the message that you can leverage fear and you can be vulnerable at the same time talking about it. But in the case where it was just me, and these are people's actual words, they said it was more memorable, it was more engaging, it was magical, and the richness of their feelings are more intense, even years later. With the animation, people will always say it was a technically impressive animation, but that wasn't what I was trying to sell. So consider the possibility that your images, and you know, the images I used today, they were all relevant, but I'm not sure if they added a lot. So consider going without slides once in a while. It completely changes the energy of the presentation and it changes the focus. So I'm going to end with a little story. When I was little, I felt very broken, and the message was that I was flawed because I felt broken. Like a plate dropped on a table, broken into 2 pieces. One was a little boy that I shared with the world, and the other piece was a girl that I kept hidden inside. And that's the way it was most of my life. And I actually kept breaking those into more and more pieces as my life went on, with a different, carefully crafted face for each community that I had to work and live with, and making sure that I kept them very safely separated. I had no idea what might happen if my traditional Chinese extended family ever came in touch with my trans friends or the circus freaks and the burlesque dancers in the arts community that I hung out with, right? Cataclysm. And so I made sure that they would never touch me. That's a very painful thing to carry. I did heal myself. It all happened at a big coming out birthday party where I pulled all these people together. But that's another story. Bring me back next time, I'll talk about that one. But my grandmother gave me some wisdom. She was a Chinese painter, and with which I could see all of this. And she said, Chinese paintings only fear one thing. They don't fear being folded. They don't fear getting wrinkled. They don't even fear being torn a little bit. What paintings fear is getting dirty, because when you get dirty, you can no longer be fully seen. And that dovetails with the Japanese philosophy about what happens when you break pottery. You try your best to glue them together. Don't worry about the cracks. In fact, boldly fill the cracks with gold and celebrate the unique life that this piece has led. So I was broken, and I put myself back together. And the cracks are still there, but I wear them proudly because they deserve to be seen, and in my own way, I've lined them with gold. So you see, there are the facts, and then there are the stories that we tell ourselves about them. Storytelling is a way to start to shift people's stories, to bring them into alignment. You do it by being this magical mix of confident and vulnerable at the same time. You do it by leading them compassionately through a change, whether it's the collapse of their worldview or simply fear of losing their rank in a company. You end up leaving people with feelings, and those can last. Those are connections that complement everything that we can accomplish with facts and adds to that to create a stronger alignment message, whether it's in our companies or in our communities. We've all lived a lot of life, and you are storytellers. And so I want you to tell your stories.